Evil Dead 2013 reboot or a modernized version of the original 1981 classic horror film from Sam Raimi. This new version was directed by Fede Alvarez, who then went on to make films such as Don't Breathe and The Girl in the Spider's Web. In terms of the plot, at first glance, this looks exactly like the first movie. Five young people arrive at a cabin in the woods to spend a couple of days there. They find an evil book called Necronomicon and inadvertently summon a demonic presence that begins to haunt and possess them one by one. But there is a key difference, and I think that that difference was my favorite part about this film. And it's that these young people do not come to the cabin in order to party or to drink. Quite the contrary. One of them is a drug addict, and she wants to quit cold turkey. So the other friends are there to monitor her, to help her with the withdrawal symptoms until she gets better, and of course to prevent her from slipping back. But then she's the first one to get possessed, and chaos ensues. So I think that this is a pretty brilliant way of inserting interesting subtext into a movie that would otherwise be just a horror film. By choosing this particular character and situation, the film essentially compares being addicted to being possessed. The person in question doesn't act like they normally would. They say and do awful stuff to achieve their goals and satisfy their desires. They hurt themselves and the people around them, and for those around them, it's easy to forget that this isn't really that person, that this is someone struggling with a terrible thing taking over, a demon or a disease. I like that comparison quite a bit, especially as it doesn't feel too preachy or too on the nose. It's there, but it never felt like I was beaten on the head with it, with the point that the movie was trying to make. Quite the opposite. The film never forgets that it's first and foremost supposed to be a horror. It never compromises its nature, and as a horror film, it goes pretty hard in terms of gore, violence, and awful, awful injuries. I mean, let me make it clear, I'm not a squeamish person, and more than a few times I had to avert my eyes or I made a sound as a result of being, disgusted. So if you're a sensitive person, this is definitely not a film for you. There's lots of blood, lots of very graphic injuries, self-harm, dismemberment, and most of it is done practically with makeup and prosthetics instead of CGI. So that makes it feel even more realistic, which, to be fair, is something I appreciated because, the filmmakers clearly accomplished their goal here. Now, I did watch the extended, unrated cut, which is 6 minutes longer than the theatrical one, but I'm not exactly sure which specific scenes were added or extended, so perhaps the theatrical version is a bit more tame, but I imagine not by a large margin because it was still R-rated when it was first released. I like this film though. I think it's a very competent horror that manages to carry an interesting subtext, which is what I generally love about good horror movies, and manages to breathe fresh air into a franchise that has seemingly done all it needed to do already. And in fact, I think that I like this Evil Dead the most out of the entire series so far.